So today I'm going to teach you how to write a thesis statement for a rhetorical analysis paper, which would be a little bit different than other papers, but it'll have some attributes that are similar. So the first thing I want to do is, in your textbook, you read, in chapter 6, you read this. Chapter 6 was basically helping you understand how to write an academic paper, especially more of a research paper, which is your next assignment. But there's some useful information to help you with writing any academic paper and a rhetorical analysis paper. So some of the things they said were you need to do are to determine whether a claim or a thesis can be argued, develop a working thesis, an appropriately limited claim, so you don't want to be too big or too small, provide good reasons and sound evidence for your argument, acknowledge possible counter-arguments, frame your argument as part of the scholarly conversation, consider whether visuals or media would strengthen your argument. So you won't need to worry about these for your rhetorical analysis paper, where you'll just need to worry about these things. So before writing your thesis statement for your rhetorical analysis paper, I highly suggest that you write your rhetorical analysis body paragraphs first, where you analyze one rhetorical device per paragraph and determine whether it's successful or not and whether it hurts or helps the author's argument. After you do that, then you would have an idea what your thesis statement is going to be because you've already shown what's effective or what isn't effective. You might even want to write your summary, introduction type of paragraph first. And then after you do all that, then you'll know what your thesis statement is going to be. So I'm going to continue working on this essay, which we did in the last video, and I wrote a rhetorical analysis body paragraph for that. So as you can remember, the rhetorical devices that I focused on, that I thought I could write about rather, were these things: rhetorical questions, appeals to pathos, her use of evidence, parallelism, and humor. So I already wrote this paragraph. So let's say you wrote your paper on questions, evidence, and humor. You decide to focus on those three rhetorical devices. And then you wrote your body paragraphs. You wrote a body paragraph about each one. And let's say that she used them all very well and it helped her argument overall. You could then, after your introductory summary paragraph, right at the end, you could write your thesis statement, which could look something like this. Minkle is successful in presenting her argument because of her use of rhetorical questions, evidence, and humor. So what this tells the reader is that in your paper, you're saying that her argument is successful because of these three devices. And it also tells the reader that the first paragraph they're going to read is going to be about analyzing her use of rhetorical questions and how they help her argument. The next paragraph will be about how her use of evidence was successful and helped prove her argument. And the third paragraph will be about her use of humor and how it was successful in presenting her argument. So the thesis kind of acts like a table of contents. It tells your position, Minkle is successful in presenting her argument, and then it tells us what the paragraphs are going to be about, rhetorical question. You're going to analyze rhetorical questions, evidence, and humor. So the table of contents, and then after all of that would follow your conclusion. So that's a good model for doing it, especially if you think all three of her devices were successful. Now what happens if you think that only two devices are successful and one's not so successful? So for instance, let's say maybe her evidence wasn't very useful. Now you could write a different thesis statement going, Minkle's argument is effective when she asks rhetorical questions and uses humor, but her confusing use of evidence keeps her argument from being wholly effective. So what you're trying to say in this thesis statement is that you're going to argue that essentially her argument was pretty good when she did certain things, but her evidence kind of detracted from her overall success of her argument. So again, we'll have a table of contents. You'll have a paragraph right after this showing how she effectively uses rhetorical questions. After that, you'll have a paragraph about how she effectively uses humor to support her argument, or how her use of argument helps support her argument. And then after that, you would have a paragraph about how her evidence was confusing and kind of hurt her argument and where it could have been more effective. So that's how you could do that. And then after that, you'd have a conclusion, and you would sum up in your conclusion. And if you have a sentence like this, if you have a thesis statement like this, rather, your conclusion would then have a final statement of whether how successful you think it was, and how much the confusing evidence hurt her argument. And then you just summarize like, it was pretty good, it was almost great, it was good, but it could have been better, whatever you want to do. Here's another example of what you could do for your thesis statement. While Minkel's argument makes good use of humor and her medium of publication in The New Yorker, her argument from 2010 is less appealing to today's readers. So again, this is kind of similar to this. You're saying her argument is good, or maybe it was good in the day, but now it's out of date. So again, we have a table of contents. Well, first we have our argument. She makes good use of humor, but her argument is less appealing. So you're going to try and prove that in your paper. Again, we have a table of contents. Right after this, you'll have a paragraph about humor, a paragraph about her use of her medium and why it was good and effective. Maybe it spoke because the medium was a New Yorker. It spoke to the same type of audience who originally read the New Yorker, the New York Times article. Those type of people read similar things sometimes. And then you'd have a paragraph saying her argument is out of date because it's from 2010 and we're in 2018 and technology and things have changed or whatever, right? And then again, in the last conclusion paragraph, you would sum up, overall how effective her overall argument was because of these rhetorical devices. So again, your thesis statement makes an argument, successful in presenting an argument. That's what you're going to try and prove. And your claims is going to be that she effectively used rhetorical questions, evidence, and humor. And I would always try and parallel what you put in your thesis statement, what you're going to argue, with what's going to come in the paper. So if you say rhetorical questions first, make sure your next paragraph after the introduction analyzes rhetorical questions. And the one after that analyzes evidence, and the one after that analyzes humor, and then your conclusion, and you're all done. I hope all this makes sense and is useful again. You can email me if you have questions. You can use the Twitter, or you can use the Canvas chat when I have office hours. All right.